Hi guys, Ricky Pope here, and this week on the Christian Nerd Unite podcast, I'm joined by film director Ben Ironside Koppin and actress Courtney Bandeko. We talk about their recent film, Pastor's Kid, plus scripture and nerdy news, and we'll get to all of that right after this. You guys know I love to share Jesus and my nerdiness with you every week. As you know, we are part of the Christian Nerd HQ podcast network. Make sure you check out all the great podcasts. Go to christiannerdhq.com for links. Outside of Christian Nerd HQ, I've been working with a team that is about to launch a new podcast telling stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things in ministry. It's called Stories of the Way. I'll be letting you know more about it over the next few weeks. If you're wanting to start a faith-based podcast and are looking for someone to help coach you along the way, let me know. I would love to hear about what you're doing and discuss how we might be able to help. Now let's read some scripture. 2 Corinthians 4:16 through 17. So we do not lose heart. Though our outer self is washing away, our inner self is being renewed day by day. For this light momentary affliction is preparing us for an eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison. And Psalm 34:18. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. As these scriptures make clear, this Christian life is not always easy. And in our interview today, we hear some of the true story of a girl who was a preacher's kid and then lost her way because of some major hurt, and about her journey to forgive and to become redeemed herself. If we're going through hard times, we need to remember there is still hope. Just as Jesus said in John 16:33, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take care, I have overcome the world. We can take comfort that Jesus is there for us, especially in hard times, and we need to share that with others who are hurting. I pray that this week you'll remember that God is walking through hard times with us. Now for some nerdy news. DC Studios is set to produce a live-action Teen Titans movie. The film will be scripted by Anna Nogueira, who is also working on Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow for DC. Introduced in the mid-1960s, the Teen Titans originally featured youthful sidekicks like Robin, Kid Flash, and Aqualad. It wasn't until their 1980s reboot by Marv Wolfman and George Perez, and that's where I actually picked up my first copy, that they surged in popularity with characters like Beast Boy, Cyborg, Raven, and Starfire. This reimagined team quickly became DC's top-selling comic. Currently, no date has been set, but we can expect this could be slated for either late 2025 or early 2026. Patty Jenkins' Star Wars Rogue Squadron might still take flight. Initially announced in late 2020, the film was removed from Disney's calendar in 2022, and Lucasfilm had halted its development. Following the cancellation of Wonder Woman 3 at Warner Brothers and DC Studios, Jenkins returned to developing the Rogue Squadron script. In a Talking Pictures podcast interview, Jenkins discusses reviving the project after concluding her Wonder Woman saga. Despite uncertainty, Jenkins expressed a strong desire to contribute to the Star Wars legacy, emphasizing the franchise's emotional impact and her eagerness to deliver a film that satisfies fans. Jenkins' involvement in Rogue Squadron is not yet officially confirmed, but she is actively working on the script and hopeful about the project's future. In our interview today, we talk with film director Ben Ironside Koppin and actress Courtney Bandeko. We talk about their recent film, Pastor's Kid. Now let's get right into our interview. Ben and Courtney, it is great to have you on the Christian Nerd Unite podcast today.
Dude,
Hello.
I love it. We're
Thank
excited.
You for having us.
I love talking to people in the film industry, and you guys have recently had a movie come out, and I believe it's in theaters today as of this recording. So hopefully, when you listen to this, it's still in theaters and you can go see it. Let's start there. Ben, just give us a real brief explanation of who you are and just really brief about the movie, and then Courtney, share with us a little bit about who you are and what part you played.
Yeah, so awesome. Yeah, basically we have a film called Pastor's Kid that's in theaters. March 15th is today when we're recording, and our main weekend is March 15th, 16th, and 17th. If that weekend goes great, like you were saying earlier, if butts are in the seats, then the film will get extended and keep going. So just keep an eye out for our film. We're in 38 theaters nationwide. And basically the film, I was working at a church for a little bit, and I filmed a testimony of a friend. And basically she just shared the story of basically being raised in a home with a mother who was an alcoholic. She had to basically raise her own little brother. The mom becomes a Christian and then becomes an executive pastor at a church, which means she runs like the business side of a church. Mm-hmm. So she's like, so everyone's praising my mom, right, as being this amazing conversion story, while no one is seeing the pain that I had in my childhood and what I went through. Mm-hmm. And she goes, I went from being the 7-year-old who's waking up their passed out mom to go to work to then being in high school and my mom saying I can't go out past 7 o'clock. And she's like, just that hypocrisy that she felt, within that she felt unseen. So that leads her to go into college, push away her mom, push away God, push away the church, and basically get into the drug and party lifestyle. And then ultimately in our film, an incident happens that forces her to reconnect with her mom and possibly see if there's another path for her to take. So when I filmed that story at the church I worked for, it was just a very powerful story that I felt like everyone could relate to. It's human. It's a human story. And we've been put in this Christian film box because yes, I would say we are to a certain degree a Christian film, but at the end of the day, I try to say this is just like if you'd make a normal movie about someone's life that has this faith journey. And we tried to tell it in the most honest, authentic way, and that made it be an R-rated film. And that's in showing some of the drug use, showing some of the abuse in different ways, having language in the film that actually shows the reality of people in these worlds instead of just glossing over things or trying to PG everything. So, yeah, that's Pastor's Kid that's in theaters right now. And Courtney is the lead in the movie. And she basically the entire movie, it's as if a documentary crew is dropped into this character's life for a handful of days. And so Courtney literally has to carry this entire movie on her shoulders. You're in almost every scene of the film, probably 97% of the film. So yeah, she's phenomenal.
Oh, well, shucks. Well, hi, I'm Courtney Bandeko. Thank you for the intro, Ben. I played Riley in the movie, which is the title character. And I just had the great fortune to help bring Taylor Tamaifuna's story and her testimony to life and bring this to theaters. And, that could have never happened. And, it's just really grateful for this moment. And then from here, it's just, I'm really excited to see really what it does for the genre, what it does for the community. And so I'm sitting back and seeing.
Well, awesome. we talked a lot about how faith films, and I don't know if you agree with this, but it's they've kind of been pushing the envelope in the last 5-10 years. You had The Chosen kind of start some of that. Then you had Jesus Revolution. Even what we were talking about, Nefarious was an R-rated Christian horror movie that came out the other year.
The director of photography for Nefarious is actually a really good friend of mine.
Oh, dude, that's amazing. Yeah. Then we had, was it Father Stew, I think was last year, Jesus Revolution. So it's Christian film is starting to, we feel like for the longest time it's been faith and family, right, have been paired together. They have to be the same. And now I feel like we're seeing the beauty of we can still have faith and family, but also expand and tell these other stories that don't fit into that kind of cookie cutter box as much. So we hope that we're part of kind of the next step in that in some ways.
Awesome. I actually I just recorded another podcast with a different person recently, and
Mm.
we had a little bit of a conversation about this, talking about. I feel like the church made a misstep sometime in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and we stepped away from theatrical film and said we don't want to have any part of that weird thing that's happening in Hollywood.
Right.
Rather than being an influence on it, we just ignored it and let it do whatever it did. And I think we as believers kind of missed the boat there. And I think we need to hop on now that we're starting to see this momentum begin. I think we need to hop into that more and more. So I'm right there with you. I'm excited about what's happening there in Christian film. So Courtney, what made you decide that this was a film that you were ready to sign on to?
Oh, goodness. Well, the first conversation I had with Ben, we sat down and, I was really curious about, hey, what is this? And I remember asking him, who is this for? And I think that was my first tether to the movie from my heart. Was he said that there was somebody in his life that felt very unseen by the church. And then who can't relate to not being seen, not being wanted, not being enough. And so that paired with him telling me he wants to do something different. Yeah, who he wants to do something that really has only been done before in small ways. When you say buzzwords like reinvent the genre, change things, I think those are the reasons why you enter into a creative life in the first place. And I said, sign me up. I am all at that point. I was all in.
Dude.
And then I just want to touch on something you just said about film and media. And, really, it's just with anything, any new thing in culture and in society. And I say this myself because I'm looking at social media and I've had disdain for it since it came out. But I am slowly saying, hey, this is here to stay. And it's a great tool. I mean, a great one. And so media, just in social media, mainstream media, film, television, I mean, the way that it can spread an idea. And then I think unconsciously it can spread very bad ideas. It can spread lies. It can spread negativity. It can spread hatred. But if you use it very consciously, you can spread positivity and love and a real message. And I really believe that at its core, the message of Christianity and the Christian community is a beautiful one. It's one of love. It's one of how to be a great person. It's one of great morality. And then if we really did that in a real way, and a real way, and not sanitizing anything, gosh, what is possible?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well,
kind of spin off on that. So Ben, what made you decide that that film or that this medium is the right place to share these kind of stories?
Yeah, I've always loved movies. Indiana Jones was the one. Raiders, of course, is what hit me as a kid that got me into filmmaking and wanting to make movies. But, I was a Midwest kid, raised in Indiana, and I would go to the public library. And you're talking about genre, first of all, is horror. I had a Christian punk rock band that got me into horror movies. So it was like Evil Dead and like George Romero zombie movies and all that stuff. So that was like high school. My parents let me finally get into some of that. But I would go to the public library and they used to have DVDs you can rent. And so I remember I kind of went through horror for a while. And then I saw this Sundance section. And I would go over to the Sundance section and I would pull out a lot of early Joseph Gordon-Levitt movies, Ryan Gosling movies, or a couple, one was called Mean Creek. Another one was, what was the one? United States of Leland was Don Cheadle and Ryan Gosling, some of his early stuff. And then there was one that hit me hard called Manic. and it is Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Zoe Deschanel, and Don Cheadle. And basically, it was shot all on mini DV cameras, and it was, you know, these kids, because you could do that, and that was like a style back then, you know.
Yeah.
And it was shot documentary style, and it wasn't like a found footage, but it was just shot that way, handheld, raw. And it was basically these at-risk teens that all end up at this like teen center, you know, that they're staying and living to try to get, you know, therapy and work through, you know, whether they're addicted to something or they, you know, have depression or suicidal thoughts. And it completely broke traditional narrative, like what I knew of a movie, you know what I mean? Because it just felt so real. And when I saw that film, that has stuck with me ever since, where I'm like, how do we tell these types of stories and be able to integrate faith into it and have things feel real and authentic? And then my short time working at a church, you know, I filmed over 200 of these testimonies, you know, while working there. And you'd be like, that story would make an Oscar-worthy movie if told in a real way, and that one could. But the problem is we've created this Christian film box that things have to live in. And so these powerful stories often, I'm not saying always, but often get watered down, and then they become just for Christians, as opposed to the beauty of, if we told these in a realistic way, everyone could enjoy these, even if they're not a Christian or if they're a different faith. It doesn't matter as long as it feels honest. And so that's what I really wanted to bring to the story of Pastor's Kid.
Awesome. Well, what do you think is different about this film than some of the other films that are, you know, when we talk about that story of feeling unseen and feeling, you know, left behind by what all's going on? What do you think's different about this particular story about Pastor's Kid than maybe some other movies that are kind of that same idea?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start and then I'll let Courtney, if you want to jump in on one of them too. It's like, I would say we've been trying to kind of coin this term, Christian art house is the word that we've been kind of using, because our film, it's R-rated. We want people to know that going into it. The goal was not to glorify the darkness, but to show just the realities of what life is like within these worlds. Like I said, like our film is like a documentary crew just dropping into someone's life. So if you're expecting a plot to move everything forward or there to be these big moments, it's more so like we are living in this person's life as things in her everyday life are triggering things from her past, and she's having to deal with them. And we felt like that was more real. I always often make the joke that if we were a traditional Christian film, she would be like a drug addict in the beginning and saved by minute 15. And then the rest of the movie would be her like helping kids in another country or something. And our movie doesn't do that. Our movie is 90 minutes of her wrestling with, can I deal with some of these things? Can I handle my past? Do I want to open up the possibility of a relationship with God again? And I think that's something Courtney did so beautifully, is that every step of the way you're seeing God slowly break open her heart, and it's not rushed through how in like, I think a lot of faith films, they disregard the skeptic's voice in a way. So,
yeah, and you know, we touched on the genre earlier, and you know, faith and family, and then our whole thesis was, can that just be one? Can that faith and family just be one subsection of the umbrella term faith film? Because I think there's a whole section of the community that aren't represented, that aren't seen by that subsection of, by that faith and family. And I think there's a whole subsection of people that are hungry for this kind of movie. And you know, and I you know, we throw this phrase around, these born again Christians.
yeah.
And I think it's those people that have been there, that have lived through this. And then I really think it honors their journey every step of the way. We honor them today by not glossing over everything that got them here. And I think this movie is for that whole, you know, facet of people.
Now, Courtney, when Ben approached you about this film, had you been actively searching for, you know, a faith-based film or that kind of film to work in? Because I know you've got a background in some decent-sized TV series in the past. Was this something you were actively looking for, or was this just kind of an opportunity that opened up? What did that look like for you? What's that journey for you, getting into being an actress and finally and getting into faith films?
So it was definitely the latter. And then funny enough, this movie was shot before I was ever any large before I was ever in any large role in any large TV show.
Oh,
I think I
okay.
had done
Yeah.
little bit parts in TV before that. And so this is just, it was very traditional. It was very, the audition came in, I auditioned, and it was an actor, you just audition all the time. And most of the time you hear nothing, so that's that's par for the course. And then yes, the opportunity came in, they were actually interested, and then it's I think one of those opportunities that just kind of fell out of the sky, and something to or a real opportunity to make art, because sometimes I distinguish the two. They're the jobs you do to pay the bills, and those are, I call them commercial jobs, whether or not
Yeah.
they're theatrical film,
The,
TV jobs.
the working actor job.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
those are wonderful. I want those. Those are great. And then every now and then, on those sets, every now and then you can squeeze in your art, those TV sets, they're a machine, and then you just want to be you're a cog in the machine until you're not. And then I feel like the A-listers, they're making art, and it's wonderful, and it's great, but up until you get to a certain point, you're a cog in the machine and just do your job, and that's wonderful. It's a great time. I've had great times, but then every now and then you get this opportunity where there's not a lot of there's not a lot of cooks in the kitchen. So then we can just get together with a very intimate group of people and just do something that means something to all of us. And then
Right.
that's what this was.
Yeah. Well, and I like to sit here and say, so you were going for, so I'm going to call you out, is she's in this great show called Legacies, and she
Right.
plays this character Finch. So if you're a Legacies fan and you know Finch, she's Finch in Legacies, and she has kind of a little cult following now, which is pretty awesome. But I remember you were like, I hope I can say this, you were auditioning for the role, and you're like, Ben, can I get some clips from Pastor's Kid to send over as I'm auditioning? And so to me, the honor is that our little Christian movie had such strong performances from you that you know what I mean, that led to you getting this kind of career break on this big show. And I've never heard of that before, because usually Christian movies are kind of, I'm going to be very careful. Maybe they're not known as being very artistic or having deep performances. I'll put it that way. Now, I'm not saying all, but I'm saying there are some. I'm just trying to be very coy with this. So it was very cool to see that the strength in your performance in this film kind of burst your career open in that way. I thought that was awesome. I was really stoked about that. So anyways, that goes to show, if you're looking at seeing a movie, whether you're Christian or not, her performance is amazing. So at least go for her performance, because she's incredible.
Thank you. That's so funny that you in hindsight, looking at it like that, I've never really saying, like, in hindsight you can connect the dots, but moving forward you're just sort of going into the dark. So it's just funny to say, like, oh, actually it did. Yeah, they did ask, because I auditioned, and then they did ask for more material. They wanted to see other things that I have done. And then I was like, oh my goodness, I have that movie. I did. Yeah, send them that. And then, yeah, that is so, yeah, it's fun. It's funny to look at things in hindsight like that one thing led to the other, and crazy journey we're on, aren't we?
Yep. It's awesome.
Well, it sounds then, now that's something I didn't quite understand. So it sounds like this movie has taken a while to come to fruition. Yes. And I was not under that understanding. So Ben, talk to me a little bit about the process here. Now, I understand you shot an interview. You felt like this is a story that needed to be told. It could be a movie. What happened after that? How long did it take for you to be able to come up with the wherewithal to get it written, to get it produced, and now finally having a theatrical release? What's that all look like?
I mean, it's been 4 year, 5 year journey, kind of getting it going, something like that. Because basically, we had the concept, we wrote the script, we knew some people in the film industry, in the Christian film space. We knew quite a few people. So, and we're close to Hollywood, so we went up and took meetings, and we would pitch it. And every meeting was like, you need to PG it to sell tickets. You need to sell a book with it. It's the Christian film. Like, I don't want to badmouth it too much, but it's the Christian. And I'm not trying to badmouth it. It's just, like you said, even in television, how there's a machine. There is
it's just of the genres, just of the machine, and it works, accomplishes amazing things.
Yes.
Not what we were wanting.
Exactly. And so we kind of did
Christian films must have a small group study. And
yes, that's what they told me. That's literally what they told me. And they said, what was they were like, there has to be a movement. You have to figure out what's the movement behind it, whether it's political or something. And I'm just like, nah, like I can't do that. And I remember walking away from a meeting, and my wife is a producer on the film, and she co-wrote the script with me. And I called her after this last meeting because it was someone I really looked up to. It was a mentor type person that was basically like, telling us to basically, like, and I don't mean sell out, but like rework the story to fit in the Christian box. And I just didn't feel comfortable doing that. And so I called up my wife in the car, and I kind of broke down a little bit. And I was like, do we just give in and do it this way that the Christian industry has seen so many times? Or do we do it the way we feel called to do it? And she basically said, like, she didn't say screw them, but basically, essentially, screw them. We're going to do it our way, and so that took. It was a harder road because of that, and so we even had investors who were very interested. We had the script ready, we had people booked, things were moving, and then we had an investor pull out last minute because of some things. They had actually another film that they had put out that had bigger talent in it, and it tanked. And so, of course, then that pulled us, and that was like a couple of weeks or a month before we were about everything's booked and moving. So I had to go through the script, tighten up the script, and then what we broke up production into, we did 2 weeks kind of back to back for like the main narrative of the story, and then it dips into her flashbacks throughout the film because it triggers her traumas that she's been through. And so we shot the main narrative, the bulk of the main narrative, in 2 weeks. Then we went and raised some more funding. Came back and filmed the flashbacks for about another week and a half, so about 17 days total. Then we went through post and edited the movie. Audio was a mess, so we had to raise more funds to then go in and do the audio. And that, of course, was right when COVID had happened around that time.
Whoa.
So then that pushes you like, 2 years, 2.5 at some point, because it's like, even I remember I was trying to get a sound mixer and they wouldn't let me in the room to like watch the film, a lot of places, even if you had everything done. And so, so I feel like it wasn't even until after COVID that we really got, or towards the end, that we got the sound in a good place. And so then we shopped it around, and here we are now. We have a theatrical distributor that's picked us up and put us out in 38 theaters nationwide, and we're just praying that it connects. And it's been really crazy to see, like, even little old ladies, like I just got a review today, like little old Midwest Christian ladies will go see the movie and they come out and they're raving about it, dude. It's not just like, oh, it was good. It's like, wow, this is mind-blowing and phenomenal. And that's been a thing that's been pushing us, is just seeing the reactions of people when they come in and have an open mind of like, I know why they did this. They're not trying to glorify this thing. They're just showing reality. And they're coming out, like the woman that just sent a review. She worked as a psychologist in New York for years with addicts and was like, and she's just this little old Midwest Christian lady, and was raving about it. So that's what really pushed us, is when we started sending it out and getting reviews back, and people you either kind of loved it or hated it in a way, and not hated it because of the movie, but you just didn't agree with the content. That's where we're like, we've got to get this in theaters and be pushing it. So sorry for the long ramble, but hopefully that gives you a little bit of the trajectory of how it took us to get here.
No, that's great. That helps me fill in some of the blanks.
Oh yeah,
I had misunderstood some things there.
Yeah,
I had a mentor one time when I was first in Hollywood. He said, "All movies are miracles."
Yes.
Everything that has to happen for a movie to reach an audience, it's a miracle. There's so many stories, especially indies. There's not a lot of money behind it. Any road could stop the movie. I know an AD that they were shooting. They were shooting in the desert when the production got shut down, and they never did. Like, you'll shoot the film, something like a bad sound, it can completely bankrupt a whole project, and then it'll be shelved. And then and I've been I've been in a ton of indie films, and this is the only one That's how the theatrical run. You know, I've been in a couple that have done festival runs, which is a
Mhm.
very different game, but
Yeah, absolutely.
theatrical run never, like,
Been there,
this
done
is
that.
the first one. So yeah, so either
Crazy.
like, you know, whatever it winds up doing, you know, I mean, even that's all enough. It's only up from here to hear that somebody, I mean, I can count like a handful now from the early reviews that, you know,
Yeah.
it has reached people, and, you know, you
Yeah.
hope for something like that, but then you're like, oh
It's
wow,
tough.
it's actually, wow, you know, that's completely enough for me, you know.
Someone even sent, did you see they sent a video and they're watching the ending of the movie and they're crying as they're watching. You see tears
Yeah.
swell up in their eyes as they're watching the end of this film.
Mhm.
And you're just like,
Mhm.
something we've talked about is because even when we were sending the film around for early screenings, is we had a group of Midwest Christian conservative women watch it.
Mhm.
And what we've realized, and they gave it pretty decent high reviews because they knew what they were going into. And what we found is that they would say, I knew someone like this in college, or I went through
Mhm.
something like this in college. And so you have these women that feel like they have to maybe sanitize, or they can't share their whole story in these environments. And then when our movie shows, they feel like they can open up and share what their experiences were like. And on the flip side of that, we hope that people that have like deconstructed or have been burnt by the church can go into this movie and also see themselves and feel seen,
Mhm.
because we don't just negate or wash over like, oh, you felt that way, or oh, this happened to you. It's like
Mhm.
both can exist, where it's like your story can be beautiful that you went from darkness to light, but also feel seen that in that environment you were supposed to feel safe, you didn't. And so we just hope that that's, you know, people come out feeling seen on either side of the fence.
So, where do you think the next stop for this film is? I mean, we're hitting the theatrical release right now. Where are you wanting to see it go?
I mean, I would love to see it in more theaters for an extended period. Like we're March 15th. I think it's 2 weeks till Easter, I think is where we're at. I would
Mhm.
love to see us get to Easter if we can. I'm crossing my fingers. I'm praying. We'll see what happens. But I think that right now, it's like to have a story that's this powerful in theaters for Easter season would be like
Yeah.
in Easter would be amazing. So
Yeah, if
we'll
people
see.
were able to go to Easter service and then go see our movie
I
afterwards.
know. Wouldn't that be epic? All right, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. It's in God's hands now.
Mhm. It
Now
really
you did mention that you went ahead and included language. You included some negative things that happen. You show
Yeah.
the realities.
Right.
Um,
Right.
what should people know before going into this film? What
Yeah.
what should they be aware of before they take the adventure and go see it?
Yeah. So there's no sex and nudity in the film. We have language. So there's quite a few F bombs in the film and other language that you'd hear in the drug culture. We have drinking. You're
Mm-hmm.
seeing people drink quite a bit, an alcoholic mother. So that can be triggering for people. And some people have been a little worried about that. We show quite a bit of drug use because that's the culture. She ended up dealing drugs to her friends. And so you're kind of seeing this parasitic relationship she has with her friends. And then I do want to warn people that in the very beginning of the film, there is a scene where she is roofied at a bar, and people are trying to kidnap her and take her to a car. And so that does not happen where an assault happens fully, a sexual assault happens, but it can be triggering for people who have been in that type of environment. She's saved last minute, and that's based on the true story. It's kind of the incident that triggers off the rest of the film, and that's based on a real incident that happened in her life. So we do want to make people aware of that too, is that those are the kind of things: language, drug use, and there's an almost kidnapping / assault, sexual assault in the film.
And what kind of support have you gotten from either your local church or churches around when you started working on this production?
It wasn't so much, when we would tell people about it before they could see it, I think that was hard for people to understand. And
Mm.
then when we had the product to show, like I showed it to my pastor just 2 weeks ago out here, and he loved it. And I think it's been so funny. Pastors really dig it because pastors are in the trenches with people.
Mhm.
Pastors are going through it. And yes, on Sunday there is this glossy facade, not facade for the pastor, but just
Right.
the church isn't digging deep into the hard stuff all the time on every Sunday. You know what I'm saying? But our pastor was basically like, especially with Celebrate Recovery, is basically the Christian AA, and he told our entire Celebrate Recovery group. He sent it out to all of his pastor friends. friends, and he's just like, this is a story that's told real, that needs to get out there for those who are in darkness to feel that there's hope. And also, he's like, it can be powerful for those who haven't experienced the darkness to see a hopeful story like this and know that that can happen. So he's been very vocal about it, which has been awesome. And we've had a handful of other like pastors share it around and everything. So we'll see how it goes. Even Courtney, you were on the podcast, sorry, with those guys, and they were raving about it. Remember our two pastors? Yeah.
They were a hoot. Yeah.
Yep. There were two Lutheran pastors that were loving the movie, and they were talking all about it. So it's awesome. I that's where I just hope that enough people can go in with an open mind and experience it, and not just be turned off by the R-rated rating. You know.
Well, Courtney, what's kind of the next big thing for you? Do you have projects coming up, or do you have hopes for some other either faith-based films or either any other kind of films?
Well, I'm auditioning for sure. But then a year or two ago, I kind of fell in love with screenwriting. And so Ben and I are going to chat about doing this again, another project, because that was just such a great experience, and I think, I think the world of you, Ben. I just would like to work with you again in a heartbeat. I think you're so talented. And then there's other things down, like it's funny, like an actor's journey, you're always auditioning, but then you're always sort of developing things yourself. And it's funny because like I always ask myself, if I died tomorrow, what would I regret? And it actually wouldn't be not booking the big thing. It's like I would regret not having tried to make these movies that are in my head. Isn't that weird? So really it's just wanting to do that, like get what's in my head out of it, and just whatever that looks like. It sounds like a lot of fun at the end of the day. And then and then if anybody wants, if anybody listening to this just wants to come hang out with me on the internet, I am on Instagram. It's my last name with another O-T, Bandekoot. There's just some things that like I've shot with my friends that I can't really talk about at this moment, but announcements are coming and all that. But that's just the best place to keep up to date.
That's awesome. And Ben, you have quite an IMDb of short films and other things you've worked on. What's your next big project or next big goal that you can talk about?
Yeah, I mean, we have a couple of films that are releasing actually later this year. One, you were talking about Christian horror in a way. It's kind of a Christian thriller called Kill a Prophet. It has Sam in it too, Courtney. And then we have another one called Burn My Money. That's a boxing film that we shot during COVID. And that's a crazy story to talk about how we ended up doing it. It was before we knew what COVID was. Basically an actor buddy who's in Pastor's Kid was like, I'm part of this stunt gym that we like do all these boxing things and all of us are bored and out of work. Can we like make a movie? And so we shot this boxing movie kind of just for like a week or so, maybe a little bit longer during COVID. It was before we knew what COVID was. It was like things were kind of shut down and people were like, what is this thing? And we're like, we're bored. Let's make a movie. And so that one is coming out too. So we have those two that are kind of going to be out. But then Courtney and I, we're going to powwow and see if we got some more projects. And
All right. Yeah. Well, anything else to share before I ask my last big question, which is where can people find you guys and find the movie? But anything else to share before we do that?
I wanted to share this one story real quick. We have not gotten a ton of negative reviews from Christians, like negative comments, but I got one the other day, and I want to tell you what my response should have been. Okay, they have been very cordial going back and forth, and they've actually ended most of the time. They end up with the people being like, "I'm going to pray for your movie and hope people show up." So they're usually very good. But this one, someone said, "What is it? No good Christian movie would have language or drug use in it." And I just was, I was tired that night, so I just deleted it and didn't mess it. But afterwards, in hindsight, I wanted to respond, yeah, it's because our Christian movie isn't a good Christian movie. It's a bad boy Christian movie. It wears a leather jacket and wears sunglasses and it smokes cigarettes behind the bleachers. That's what our movie is. It's John Travolta from Grease. That's the kind of bad boy Christian movie ours is. I should have put that, but I didn't. So anyways.
Oh
Sorry.
my gosh.
Sorry, just had to share that.
Well, I
We're
live
the
in
bad boy Christian.
We're smoking cigarettes behind the bleachers. Look at us.
I live in the world of Christian social media and Christian nerd social media.
Oh,
So
dude, I bet it's
I
great. Yeah.
I if I'm not called a heretic at least once a week, I feel like I'm not doing my job well.
Have you ever gone to Comic Con? Are you ever at Comic Con?
Not out in California. I haven't.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I used to film it for the company that I worked for, and I went to they had like a whole Christian like group and panel and stuff, and we talked about they had like a whole Christian comics area too, and it was really cool to see all these nerds like get together and just talk about faith and all sorts of stuff. A lot of like what is it, Sandman, the comics that deal with like faith, but in the Neil Gaiman. Yeah, anyways, a lot of stuff like that. It's like talking about these, faith being integrated in different things and discussed in different ways in culture. It was really cool.
Awesome. Yeah, I love having those kind of conversations, and I love having people on that are in the industry doing things. So I've had a few artists for comic books come on, and I've had
That's awesome.
a couple of writers, and every once in a while I get a surprise and find out somebody is a believer that I wasn't aware of, and I try to get them on the show. So
who's the guy? He wrote. I'm gonna censor the name, but he wrote the comic Kick Butt. If you know what I'm saying, Kick Butt.
Oh yeah.
He did one called I want to say it was called The Chosen or something like that, and it was about. Anyways, I don't get the whole thing, but it was like the Antichrist being born and thinking he was Jesus, but then he finds out that he's like thinks he's the resurrection of Jesus, and then he finds out that he's actually Antichrist. And I think, anyways, I got that comic back in the day, and I think he's a Catholic. He's Catholic, and so he has a lot of like interesting faith stuff in his. And I think they actually turned it into a show on Netflix. But anyways, sorry. I can talk nerd culture stuff all day long too. So.
Awesome.
Anyways,
well, where can people find the movie, and then where can people follow each of you?
Yeah, so pastorskidthemovie.com is where all of our stuff is. So showtimes are up on Fandango for March 15th, 16th, and 17th, and hopefully beyond. Once that's done, we'll be up on Amazon and a whole bunch of other places for VOD, probably about 30 to 45 days after whenever our theatrical run ends. So we'll put that all on the site, so pastorskidthemovie.com. And yeah, I'm at Ironside Films on Instagram, so you can follow me there. And
oh yeah, I touched on it. I'm on Instagram,
yeah.
Bandicoot, and then I have an idea to make a TikTok. I have a TikTok account, but I'm not active on it. It's the same. It's the same handle. Maybe I'll eventually get on. I will eventually be on TikTok. Figuring out Instagram first, and then I'll be on TikTok. Maybe by time this is all out, I'll be on TikTok actively. And then I think on Pastor's Kid on the website, that's sort of the catch-all for any goings on about eventually if you can't make it out to the theater, that'll be where we're streaming and stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah. Hey, Courtney, tell me you're a millennial without telling me you're a millennial.
Oh Lord.
When we're over here, I'm still trying to figure out Instagram. There you go. That's how you tell you're a millennial.
I know how to.
I'm the same way.
Instagram as a consumer, but as a creator,
it's so hard.
What? It's just it keeps changing. It's just so funny because I know I need to be in with it, but I'm just so bored by it. That's what it is. It's just like I like I pride myself that my attention span is still very long.
Yes, good.
So I get sent videos all the time by my brother-in-law and all this. I'm like, I don't want to watch this.
It's bad when the old Generation X guy on the show is the one that has the most the most social media channels and is expanding into the newest ones he can find.
Yeah, I always say I was born in the wrong decade. I should have been around in the 60s.
There you go.
Especially my music taste with everything.
That's hilarious.
That's with everything I exude, I was like, I should have been like 70s or even the 80s punk rock movement. I should have just been then.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, I will put links to all that down in the show notes. It has been great having both of you on the show this week, and I look forward to seeing where Pastor's Kid goes from here.
Dude, thank you so much.
Right.
We're stoked.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us.
It was great getting to know Ben and Courtney. If you want to find out more about Pastor's Kid, check out the links down in the show notes below. Well, that's all I have for you today. Before you go, I do want to leave you with this blessing from Hebrews 13. Now may the God of peace, who through the blood of the eternal covenant brought back from the dead our Lord Jesus, that great shepherd of the sheep, equip you with everything good for doing his will. And may he work in us what is pleasing to him through Jesus Christ, to whom be glory forever and ever. Amen. We'll see you next week. Blessings.